Good morning. I'm Sharon Baker. I'm your worship associate this morning. Isn't this a beautiful fall morning? Getting ready for Halloween and whatever else. Pumpkins and lots of people down on Buchanan Street. We're glad to see everyone. I'm looking around to see if there's anybody I don't know, if we have guests this morning. I hope that the ones that are watching us online are going to enjoy our service. And I'd like to say once again, as I always say, that the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Amarillo is common ground for uncommon people, because we are all different, but we are all joined together by our doctrine of love. And now, if you'd like to stand up and say hello, let's do that. And now if you'll remain standing and join me in our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship. For these high purposes do we unite in worship. Now, as I light the chalice, I would like to share this with you. Our chalice is a reminder that in hard times, our ancestors in faith acted with courage to bring hope and safety, to bring life itself to threatened people. We light it today as a reminder of who we are called to be in a world still dangerous and despairing. With courage and faith, we bring ourselves to the work before us. And now we will have a story for all ages by Melody Pinson.
Wow, that came up really fast. I wasn't through visiting, but the story that I brought for you today is called The Three Questions, and it's a story written by Tolstoy. And I've never read Tolstoy before, but this is a revised version and written for a simpler audience, which I consider myself simpler. You may not consider yourself simpler, but maybe we can get on with the importance of what the story has to say. So this is The Three Questions, and it's written by Tolstoy, and I was going to tell you a little bit about Tolstoy, that the author says, and the author is John J. Muth, and he says, many years ago, I found the 3 questions mentioned in a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Zen master, and when I first read the story, it was as if a golden bell inside me had been struck, reminding me that I already knew this tale by heart. Some books are like that, and it has happened here for me very often with the writer of Tolstoy. So this story is about a boy and his animal friends, but originally it was written about a czar. So I think that will kind of help us put some of this into perspective when we get ready to read. So we'll go ahead and start with the first part. And I will say, please excuse my little PowerPoint. I don't do it every day anymore, so it was a taxing task. There was once a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood, and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answers to my 3 questions, Nikolai continued, then I would always know what to do. I think I always want to know that, always. So, when is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered his first question. Then Sonia, the heron, spoke. To know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance, she said. Gogol, the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, you will know when to do things if you watch and pay close attention. Then Pushkin, the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, you can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need a pack to keep watch and help you decide when to do things. For example, Gogol, a coconut is about to fall on your head. Nikolai thought for a moment, and then he asked his second question, who is the most important one? Those who are closest to heaven, said Sonia, circling up into the sky. Those who know how to heal the sick, said Gogol, stroking his bruised noggin. Those who make the rules, growled Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more. Then he asked the 3rd question. What is the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, laughed Gogol. Fighting, barked Pushkin right away. Then the boy thought for a long while. He loved his friends, but he knew they were all trying their best to help him answer his questions. But their answers didn't seem quite right. Then an idea came to him. I know, he thought. I will ask Leo the turtle. He has lived a very long time. Surely he will know the answers I am looking for. Nikolai hiked up into the mountains where the old turtle lived all alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging a garden. The turtle was old, and digging was hard for him. I have 3 questions, and I came to ask your help, Nikolai said. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. Then he went on with his digging. You must be tired, Nikolai said at last. Let me help you. The turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept on digging until all the rows were finished. But just as he finished, The wind blew wildly, and the rain burst from the darkened clouds, and as they moved toward the cottage for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. Running down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured by a fallen tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg with a stick of bamboo. The storm raged on, banging at the doors and the windows, and the panda woke up and said, "Where am I? And where is my child?" The boy ran out of the cottage and down the path, and the roar of the storm was deafening and pushing against the howling wind and drenching rain, and he ran farther into the forest, and there he found the panda's child, cold and shivering on the ground. The little panda was wet and scared, but alive, and Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry. Then he laid her in her mother's arms. Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning, the sun was warm. Birds sang, and all was well with the world. The panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and her baby from the storm. At that moment, Sonia, Gogol, Pushkin arrived to make sure everyone was all right. Nikolai felt great peace within himself. He had wonderful friends, and he had saved the panda and her child, but he also felt disappointed. He still had not found the answers to his 3 questions. So he asked Leo one more time. The old turtle looked at the boy. "But your questions have been answered," he said. "They have?" asked the boy. "Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cries for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging the garden. The most important one was that moment was me. And the most important thing to do was to help me with the garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones were the panda and the baby. And the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe. Remember then that there is only one important time. That time is now. The most important one is the one you were with. The most important thing to do is to do good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is the most important in this world." Thank you.
Now we're going to have a couple of musical selections, and in between that, Reverend Butts is going to lead us in our joys and concerns.
May this body be a bridge for the healing of this land. May the river flow through us, cleansing greed from our hands. May this body be a bridge from the water for the healing of this land. May the river flow through us, cleansing greed from our hands. To this land. May this body be a
With that beautiful music in mind, we pause now in the midst of our service to do something that is so important to communities like this. We pause to listen deeply, to practice that ancient skill, that ancient spiritual practice of listening deeply to one another as we celebrate our joys together and as we stand in solidarity with those concerns. Come forward, light a candle, tell us who you are, and share what is on your mind.
I actually have to raise the microphone this time. I usually have to lower it. Hi, my name is Holden. And I have a joy today. Sorry, I brought it back too quickly. It blew out. I have a joy today. Last week, I went to Monterey High School in Lubbock for a debate tournament, and I made finals in congressional debate. I placed 15th out of, I believe, 20 people, which is, I could still improve. However, I am pretty proud of making it to finals. Thank you.
Hey, dudes. You stay up there. There we go. Went to California last weekend. That was pretty cool. Got to see my grandma, who could still kick my ass, I'm sure. She's 98 years old, outlived all but 2 of her 7 kids, and is still going strong. So we're confident she'll probably make it beyond 100. Bay Area weather was perfect. It was amazing. And then yesterday we had a birthday, my wife's birthday. We had an old school garage party. Some of you all saw the pictures. It was great. And we ate a lot of food and made a lot of noise, and it was neat. So.
Yeah, I just want to share, I think either today or tomorrow is the Festival of Lights in India. It's called Diwali. So I just wanted to mention to everybody. Thank you.
Oh, and Art's here, so that's cool.
Wow, we got blue and orange today. I'm Lena. Claudia, can you hear me? I'm going to say no. I said, Claudia, can you hear me? Okay. Yesterday we had our No Kings 2.0. We had an amazing turnout. Michael Cuviello and I from the Globe News, we decided that we're going to call it over 500. I would say there was closer to 600 to 700. James was out there. He was monitoring the scanner for us and driving around. And he said when everybody crossed the street to walk the block, he said there were way more people than we realized. We had a great turnout. Very few instances of issues. We had 2 issues, and one of them has nothing to do with us, and the other one was just because we had people who were standing in the drive to the Civic Center. We had a dance party. We had a group of young kids in blow-up costumes who were surrounding David Grisham and talking to him and dancing in front of him just to drown him out. And they kept him entertained long enough for everybody else to really enjoy the protest. This morning, I posted some pictures and videos to both the Social Justice Facebook page and our Instagram. And in that is also a video of Sonia Berg, who just walked in. Dancing around the fountain with the younger kids. So she was having a blast too. But it was a great turnout, and I appreciate everybody who came.
I'm Janda. First, yes, no kings. Last week I had mentioned 2 concerns, and so updates on those. My husband Lyle, who's usually here, got out of the hospital okay, got back to Brookdale okay, but he's having some struggles, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on. He's having some nausea, and he apparently fell during the night, but they don't see any damage. But he chose not to go to breakfast this morning. They brought breakfast to him. So not sure what's going on. They asked him if he thought he needed to go to the hospital and be checked, and he said, no, absolutely not. So I don't know. And my brother, I reported that he had a broken femur and had his hip replaced and a bunch of stuff. He's doing better. He's in rehab. They're making him walk and do things that hurt, but he's a rebel, and the big concern is he's going to hurt himself again before he gets strong enough to do what he's supposed to be doing. So wish for patience for my brother, because he's a wild thing.
For all of those joys and sorrows that we've heard, for the beauty of community coming together and peaceful protest, for those who are not feeling well today, wherever they are, and for 98-year-old grandmas who just point the way, for all that we have heard, and for those joys and sorrows that are in your heart that maybe don't even have words yet. We light this last candle.
Okay, I have one more reading for you. It's called Nearer. It's a poem by C.S. Lewis. If you want to get warm, you must stand near the fire. If you want to be wet, you must get into the water. If you want joy, power, peace, eternal life, you must get close to, or even into, the thing that has them.
I wonder if you would join me in a moment of silence, meditation, heart opening. Sweet Holy Spirit, we pause before another day of exploration. First, to give thanks that we're alive and breathing, and to give thanks for the moon and the sun and the bright blue sky. We pause to open our hearts, to open our minds, to be receptive to the wisdom this day will bring us. We pause to remember the sacred center of our bodies and our spirits. We pause to remember the goodness at the heart of all creation, including ourselves. The purposeful goodness from which we come, in which we live our fullest, to which we shall at last return. There is no other day, there is no other hour, there are no other people, there is no other life. Everything we need is here. All the pieces, all the possibilities, the ideas, the partners. No saints or heroes required, no perfect plans, no perfect people, only the willingness to speak and to hear and to laugh and to explore the willing heart of each one we encounter today, the heart filled with wonder. Each of us are stumbling and bumbling. Each of us forgives and is forgiven. Thank you, sweet Spirit. We show up. These are the ingredients we need today for healing, for change, for life. They're all here, and here is enough. We end in praise and thanksgiving, and we see the work set before us. Let us begin this time in joy and peace.
And now that you've already seen Reverend Butts a couple of times, I'm going to tell you about him. I know he's been here with us before, but let's just remind ourselves how lucky we are to have him. Roger Butts was ordained at the Unitarian Church in Davenport in 2002-2003. He has split his ministry between hospital and hospice chaplaincy and congregational leadership. His first book, Seeds of Devotion, gets its title from a Rumi quote. He has long been a part of the UU Christian Fellowship and the International Thomas Merton Society. His wife, Reverend Dr. Marta Fioriti, is a minister in the United Church of Christ, a flaming liberal in a liberal church. He believes humor and grace will save us all. He has preached at Amarillo UU a few times now and loves to be with you all. In the last few months, he has preached with Episcopalians, Presbyterians, Congregationalists, and Unitarian Universalists. He longs for a world in which progressive denominations start working together for the common good and find common ground, remember I mentioned that, with more traditional denominations on things we can agree on whatever those may be, poverty, immigration, etc. How foolish these walls that divide us. Roger Butts.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be with you. I was telling John earlier, I love coming down from Fort Collins, where I'm a hospice chaplain. I drive down 6-7 hours, and I listen to audiobooks and podcasts, and I just have, like, my little Subaru and me are just happy as clams. I walked into my patient's room at her beautiful house in the part of northern Colorado where the wealthy suburbs come right up against the wealthy rural agricultural land. On one side, big houses, the other side, fields and cows for as long as the eye could see. She was in bed, comfortable, at ease. She was a verbal processor, which, now that you've gotten to know me a little bit, you will recognize as my cup of tea. As I've told you before, my job as a hospice chaplain is to ask, how is it with your spirit? And then my job is to keep my mouth shut. This particular person happened to have worked in hospice her whole life in a different part of the state as a grief counselor. So she knows what she's up against. And she didn't even know if she would need a social worker or a chaplain. But there was one thing that was bothering her. Now, before I go on to tell you what was bothering her, on this woman's fridge was a do not resuscitate document, like don't start pounding on my chest, and a little card that had a chalice and 7 principles and 7 sources. Sound familiar? This was a Unitarian Universalist. And I did not realize that upon meeting her. But she said, I'm getting close to the end of my life, and I grew up a strict Catholic. Serious business. My parents told me and my priest told me that there were certain sins that God could not forgive. I looked in her eyes. She told me about her first husband, a prominent state politician. She told me about his death and how good of a man he was and how much she loved her kids that they had together. And then she said, and 15 years ago I met Alice, and we were lovers until she died a year ago. Tears were beginning. You know how tears begin to swell up in your eyes? They don't quite fall down, but they're there, Tears were welling up in her eyes. But she was resolved to tell her story. I had such a good life. I have no fear whatsoever of dying. I just don't want to suffer on the way, but that's why I'm in hospice care. I've had great loves. I've read great books. I've taken great adventures, and my kids are so loving. I know I'm full of blessings, but I'm afraid I'm going to die and go to heaven, and St. Peter is going to be at the gate, and he's going to say, not today. You strayed. Why did you stray? I held her hand. I offered her words of reassurance. I offered her words of hope and guidance. She told me that she loved the contemporary Catholic writer Richard Rohr, and that she, who lives next door in New Mexico, wherever New Mexico is. His words and her UU background and her love of writers like Thomas Merton were there to remind her that she was surrounded by love, that she was not alone, and that whatever comes next, if anything, is grounded in love and goodness. I helped her remember the resources within her that would bring her comfort, while not dismissing or diminishing her sense of uncertainty and fear. Who isn't uncertain or fearful in the face of such questions? I sure enough didn't pretend to know if St. Peter would be guarding any gates. How would I know? I don't know. It's not my job to pretend to know any of that. But reminding her of the goodness and beauty of her path and her journey, that is what I could do. And remind her of the resources that she has within her, from both her Catholic writers that she loved and her UU faith that she loved, and that both point to the goodness at the heart of all creation. That I could do. The great surmise says simply this: at the heart of all creation, there is a purposeful goodness, a good intent from which we come and which we live our fullest, to which we shall at last return. And this is the ultimate truth. Carl Scoville, the UU minister at King's Chapel in Boston, wrote those words 35 years ago, and I've never forgotten them. I offered to come back and see her, and she readily agreed. I even offered to bring her communion, if that would be of assistance to her. I was reminding her, and she was telling me that she had been on a journey to find a way and a path in her spiritual life that made sense to her and worked for her. And that all she needed around this, whether there's a God or not, whether there's a St. Pete or not, is to trust that she had all she needed inside of her and around her. She had like 15 bouquets of flowers that people had sent her. She had just gotten on hospice, you know. And she had all these cards. And she kept pointing to them and saying, I am loved. I am loved. I am loved. And that is so important to me. She was loving and she was love. And I reminded her, you've got this. You've got this. You are not alone. I tell you this story to introduce a foundational document that I want to talk about this morning. Ralph Waldo Emerson's 1838 Divinity School address, given to the graduating class at Divinity College in Cambridge, now known as the Harvard Divinity School. Emerson came to them at their invitation, and he came to them as a former Unitarian pastor, and he addressed a group of future pastors who would take over Congregationalist and Unitarian parishes in New England. If I could summarize what Emerson is trying to interrogate in this address, it would be something like this: what in God's name have we done to religious thought and religious life in the spiritual way? And what in God's name can we do better, and how? Right? That's what I think he's up to in this essay. And the question he wants to take up is, how can the soul know itself? He's coming to speak to all of these people who are going to be first-time ministers. And he says, if we can know virtue, if we can know the good and the beautiful, and we give ourselves to virtue and to goodness, which is what C.S. Lewis was saying in that poem, right? Which is sometimes called love or justice or beauty, we will find our way. He says, a more secret, sweet, and overpowering beauty appears to humans when his heart and mind open to the sentiment of virtue. Then he is instructed in what is good. He learns that his being is without bound, that to the good, to the perfect, he is born. When by intellect or by innocence she says, I love the right, Truth is beautiful within and without forevermore. Virtue, I am thine. Save me, use me. Thee will I serve day and night, in great and small, that I might not be virtuous, but virtue. Then is the end of creation answered. Benevolence is absolute and real. So much benevolence as a man has, so much life he has. For all things proceed out of this spirit. Then life, he says, Emerson says, then life is reverence and devotion and delight. All right, so how are these young men, they were all white, they were all males, how were they going to impart this? Before I tell you, I'm going to tell you my favorite joke. Young priest, first Sunday out of seminary, first Mass, everybody has gathered to hear the new person, you know, see what he has to say. Everybody is anticipating his first word. He's excited, and he comes up to the microphone to say the first words to these people, and he realizes quickly that something is wrong with the mic, and he says, "There's something wrong with this," and everyone says in unison, "And also with you." Anyway, these young men want to know, how can they impart a sense of this goodness to their people? As long as the doors of the temple stand open before everyone, and the oracles of this truth never cease, it is guarded by one stern condition, and that is, it is an intuition. That you cannot transfer from one soul to another soul the truth, but rather you can provoke. You can provoke the soul of another. It cannot be received at second hand. It is not instruction, but provocation that I can receive. And what a pastor announces, you either find lifts your soul or you let it go. Okay. But how can we provoke? How can we provoke? That's what the young people wanted to know. And Emerson in this address says, "For whatever else you do, be yourself." Doesn't matter if you have a pastor or not, Amarillo. I know you have Chuck, and I come down every once in a while, and you guys speak to each other. It doesn't matter who occupies this pulpit. That person has to be authentic and say, "This is what I've discovered in this old life." Be fully human. Show them your life. Show them how to find the keys to this goodness by modeling it and by sharing your best guess. And Emerson says, finally, do what Jesus did, which wasn't anything particularly supernatural. He rather lived fully in and around and through this goodness. Jesus belonged to the true race of prophets. He saw with open eyes the mystery of the soul, drawn by its severe harmony, ravished with its beauty. He lived in it and had his being there. Alone in all history, he estimated the greatness of humans. Okay, maybe not alone in all history, but close enough. One person was true to what is you and in you and me. And he says, whatever happened to Jesus can happen to you too. You too can live in and through that goodness. Whatever happened to the Buddha, whatever happened to Muhammad, whatever happened to the Dalai Lama, whatever happened to Thich Nhat Hanh, all of those people were able to be fully human, and that's what we can do too. Now, Emerson says, the church goes around saying, this one person is Jehovah come down from heaven, and if you call him a mere man, I will kill you. How far we've come, he says. The churches are not built on his principles, but on his tropes, Emerson says. That's the first error the church makes, is to focus too much on this one person, as opposed to his message, which is love. All right. The second is even more relevant to us here today in Amarillo. And that is that the church, this is the second big error the church makes. The second error that the church makes is to act as if God spoke once but doesn't continue to speak. That gets it all wrong, Emerson says. God is still speaking. And when the preacher doesn't act like God is still speaking, everyone is defamed. Everyone is lied to. But even worse, everyone is bored out of their brain. He didn't say it quite like that. He didn't say it quite like that. That's my interpretation. The person on whom the soul descends, through whom the soul speaks, alone can teach. Courage, piety, love, wisdom can teach. And everyone can open their doors to these angels, and they will bring them the gift of tongues. But the one who speaks as books enables, as fashion guides, as interest commands, babbles, let him hush. Woo! Hey now. Feel in your call desire and hope. It doesn't matter if you're lay-led or if you have a pastor who can build a church to 4,000 people. Be full of desire, be full of hope. Emerson says, it's the funniest thing. Emerson says he once went to see a pastor speak who tempted him to never enter a church again. And it's pretty clear that the pastor to which he refers was in the audience at Harvard College. He says the snow outside was real and the pastor wasn't. If the pastor had any kids, had known any kind of sorrow, had known any kind of joy, we were none the wiser for it. Preach your life. Preach your life. The true preacher can be known by this, that he deals out to the people his life passed through the fire of thought. When I sat with that woman this week, that's what I was leading her to. That her life mattered. That the conclusions she brought about in her life passed through the fire of thought mattered. That everything she needed at the end of her life was inside her already. I was simply reminding her of that. I was simply bearing witness to that. The gift of God is not an overpowering sanctity, which is exclusive and set on fear. That's what the Catholic priest was trying to tell her. I'm not busting on Catholics. But she was afraid because somebody had told her that there was an exclusivity and fear and sanctity that some people have and others don't. No, Emerson says, the gift is one that is a sweet, natural goodness from which you live. And so he told those young men, let the breath of new life be breathed by you through the forms already existing. If you are alive, you will deliver the message anew. The remedy to the deformity of the church is first soul, second soul, and evermore soul. Her soul knows that even though the way is unclear, that love will guide her. Her soul knows that the path is foggy, but that the way will open. Amarillo, everyone in this town, and everyone in every town everywhere, wants you to speak the deepest truth of your soul. And like those young pastors about to start their first parish assignments, you are called to live in hope and desire and to share the depths of your soul with each other and this community. Be what Emerson encouraged those young people to be, a newborn bard of the Holy Ghost. Cast behind you all conformity and acquaint one another at first hand with the sacred.
Thank you. That was great. And now we come to the time in our service when we may share our treasures. And a lot of us share our time and give our service here, but it's also very important to share our treasures, our money, because if we didn't have the money, we wouldn't have this place. And I hope you all saw Bruce out there this morning. Keeps everything running. He rarely makes an appearance, but he was here this morning. So give freely, and if you want, scan the QR code and donate every month automatically. Oh, if you want to have lunch with Roger after the service, it will be at Jacobo's on Olson. That's Roger right there. He's ready. He's hungry. This is our usual list of things that are going on here. We're very busy. Social justice, adult religious, book club, Beyond Belief AA group, knowledge seekers, and even nothing much Buddhists. This is all in our newsletter. If you're not receiving our newsletter, just tell April and she'll put you on the list. Next Sunday, we're having this Dia de los Muertos. Did you want to say something about that? You be careful what you encourage her.
Next Sunday, some things say that I'm going to be the speaker, but it's not right. I'm going to be the worship associate, and Harrison Burkett will be doing the actual message, and we have lots of help from other friends. So come. It will be a remembrance of all those we've lost at any point in time, with specific focus on the 5 or so members of this fellowship that we have lost this year. If you have pictures or mementos that you would like to add to the ofrenda in the front lobby, please feel free to bring those. If you don't want to, that's okay too. But if you have some that you'd like to add, we would be pleased and delighted to have them.
I'm sure that November the 2nd is really not a repeat. It's going to be Chuck, right? Chuck Fisher will be here, Reverend Chuck Fisher, on November the 2nd. And on November the 9th, abortion clinics. We have another announcement from Holden.
Hey y'all, so there's a debate tournament on November 14th at Tascosa High School, and I need to get a few judges for it, so if you wish to be a judge at that tournament, come see me near the front entrance of this building. Only, I can't reiterate this enough, only sign up if you are 100% sure that you are able to go. If you are at all hesitant in your ability to make it to this tournament, do not sign up. Because if you don't go, that will shut down pretty much the entire tournament. So there will be a training thing on November 11th at 6 p.m. So, but yeah, if you want to be a judge, come see me over there. And I only have 3 actual sign-up sheets, but I brought some notebook paper because I knew I was low. And I'll just kind of walk you through the sign-up process. Thank you so much.
I'm just wondering when we're going to sign Holden up for a sermon.
Eventually.
And now Reverend Butts will extinguish our chalice.
Well, I think I've shared this with you before. At the end of every service that I've done for almost 25 years, I say the same thing. If it's God that you seek, may God walk with you. If it's life you embrace, may life return your affection. And if it's the right path that you seek, may the way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Go in peace, friends. Until next time.
And our closing words, may the fellowship of this hour touch and move our lives until we come again together.